Leading off with the first match of this round, I go with my Charizard, Beedrill, and Quagsire. These are based on observations on my opponent's team, and it's always tempting to lead off with my Charizard just because it's a powerful force, but also has the ability to kill shields with the whole Dragon Claw deal. So we'll see if leading with Charizard is a good thing or too predictable. Second ability seems to work in my favor. He'll probably switch out, but having an advantage is always a good thing, because as you know, once you switch out, you have to wait like a good chunk of time. For some reason 60 seconds sticks in my mind before you can actually switch again. For example, let's say you lead with a Venusaur, and you're up against a Charizard. If you switch to the Quagsire, your opponent can switch immediately to the Venusaur, which hard counters the Quagsire, and you are just PO out of luck. That Quagsire is as good as gone. So a lot of times when you switch out of a disadvantage, you also have to risk the possibility of just pretty much sacking off that Pokemon you're switching, because it's going to be stuck there for a good while. So you may be curious why I left Charizard out as long as I did. Well, long story short, I was trying to bait out shields, trying to get the advantage as soon as I could. I guess it would have worked out well, especially if I would have swapped before the Quagsire got off of Stone Edge. That way I wouldn't have to waste a shield in return, and we would have been stuck to the same number of shields. But I took down a Pokemon. I managed to save my Charizard for this moment here. So, all's well that ends well. I decided to go in the Beedrill instead of hard back into Charizard for that Venusaur, just to try and conserve the Charizard in case I needed it for a Pokemon later on, because I didn't know about this Ninetales until I essentially lured it out with the Beedrill. And I'm actually surprised how much work I'm able to do to the Ninetales with my Beedrill, to the point where it's actually worth using a shield just to conserve my Charizard a little bit more for that Venusaur when it comes back out. And the fact that I'm able to bait out his last shield with the Sludge Bomb pretty much puts things well in my favor. So I can just bring my Charizard out here, pull out Dragon Claw right away, and he can't block it. Hopefully it'll at least wear out the Ninetales to the point where I can just finish it off with my Air Slashes, and I'd be able to use the rest of my Charizard's strength against the Venusaur. Unfortunately, I overestimated my ability to withstand not very effective attacks. Hopefully we can turn things around with round 2 though. And here's the thing about round 2. We had some lag issues, so my opponent wanted to have a rematch. But I wanted to leave this first attempt at round 2 in, just to show how drastically different a battle can be if you know what you're going to lead out with. Because I'll admit, until the point of lag, I felt like I had a distinct advantage in this particular battle. Leading off with my Azurill against the Venusaur seems like a really risky move. However, with Ice Beam on my side, I was willing to take the risk, if only to burn a couple shields that he had, than to get some super effective damage off on it. Oh, and I wasn't expecting it to come this soon, but it didn't really seem like we lost too much in the battle. In fact, if anything, I was hurt a lot by that, because it felt like I didn't get to attack, and he got quite a few hits in exchange. However, I was able to waste a shield. Like catch-ups, I guess, real fast. I guess I see why my opponent wanted to rematch this now that I'm watching it in post. And you also just saw how quickly a Quagsire falls to a Venusaur, or pretty much any grass type that you can get into this meta. However, Quagsire is just so useful for it, because depending on the moveset you give your Quagsire, it can counter so many things. Obviously, it's going to annihilate any fire types that you bring into the match, but his ground typing also gets an advantage against the poison types. With Sludge Bomb, it actually can fare well against Azurill. And of course, any electric types you put in, Quagsire is going to do well against as well. So I think we all know where this is going from here. I'm just Dragon Clawing to finish up the Ninetales, and victory is essentially ensued. A little bit more leggy here and there, but enough for me to actually finish the job. So for the round 2 here, because it's a reattempt of our second round, I unfortunately have to lead with the Zero again, which I honestly wouldn't have wanted to be in this situation in the first place. So I do switch into my Charizard right away this time instead of leading to the Zero, but I forgot the fact that this is exactly what I was talking about before, of when you switch, you're pretty much leaving the Pokemon you switch in as death fodder, because your opponent can switch right into the hard counter like this Quagsire here and take you out almost immediately. Like, I'm not even sure why I spent the shield, despite the fact I was just desperate to try and burn a couple of his shields. Even if he didn't use his shield, getting rid of the Quagsire can only be in my advantage. But unfortunately, I didn't feel like I wanted to lose a shield so quickly, so I just have to let my Charizard get sacked off. So I'm bringing the Zero here to finish it off. And while my opponent does have a distinct advantage, my switch timer is about to run off, so I suppose if I needed to, I could switch out. But I do have an Ice Beam ready to go, so I can at least launch that out. Opponent still has a shield, which kind of puts me in a tight situation because I do feel like I'm at a disadvantage now. And I really didn't want to waste a shield, but unfortunately that left me in a situation where it's my one Pokemon against 2 of his. And this one is kind of just more of a diddle stall match. There's also a lot of bad plays here, like I should have shielded this Sludge Bomb, and I could have sworn there was a misclick or two that kind of affected the outcome of the fight as well. I could have sworn there was one of these fights where there was a misclick of some sort. But to be fair, none of it really matters, because that Ninetales was his last Pokemon. So I was just out of luck because I didn't have my water type ready. That match didn't go nearly as well. And I think even without the lag I would have won, but I could see why someone would want to redo it. Because I just did not play as well in that second attempt of the round as well. And speaking of Venusaur diddles, I mean, this was definitely how I want to start my day. Have to be in a situation where I have to choose between being stuck in this stall match or pretty much sacking off my Charizard to the Quagsire that is inevitably going to come out. I did waste one of my shields, trying to make sure I wasn't going in on a charge attack right away. And unfortunately, I'm just in another situation where I'm trying to stall out shields from the Quagsire, or at least do as much damage as I could against it. Now, I know this isn't going to look good. It's going to look like I did nothing and that it lagged out and we should have rematched. But I'm pretty sure my opponent did use a shield. It just didn't play the animation for some reason. And yep, I mean, it doesn't help that I keep underestimating how powerful Stone Edge is against the Charizard. But I'm pretty sure I was in a situation where I had to sack it off anyways. And these visual glitches like that are just part of the reason why I don't think it's such a bad thing to take out switch damage. Because I was clearly still attacking, but the swap wasn't going away. And I don't mind there being a little chip damage to have a consequence to losing the battle, but I feel like just the way that it is right now is too far. And I know I've had a situation in this tournament in particular where I was swapping out. I'm so busy tapping to attack still. They ended up clicking on the wrong Pokemon, and it cost me the entire match. So here we are, pretty much back the way we started. Venusaur against Venusaur. While I still have shields to protect me from a couple of Sludge Bombs, I'm almost out of the Pokemon. He apparently was saving energy for a second Sludge Bomb. So even if I could take out the Venusaur, there's no way I would have been able to take out the last Pokemon too. Hopefully this round goes a bit more smoothly than the one we were just doing. I decided to spice up my team a little bit, finally took out Charizard in exchange for Beedrill. Minus their typing, I feel like they play similar roles, where they're fast, frail Pokemon that have options for killing shields. So I'm hoping that doing this swap will work to my advantage. Of course, having Charizard against this Fortress would have been really useful, but I get the feeling I can find a workaround. Yeah, remember when I brought up that example about switching into Quagsire only to have it die, essentially, to the Venusaur that gets swapped in on a counterplay? That's basically me every time I try to use Quagsire, unfortunately. So, with that option out of the way, I could go into either my Venusaur or my Beedrill. And while I could go into Beedrill, I'm kind of afraid of a similar situation where I swap into a Pokemon that has a clear advantage, and my opponent just swaps into his counter and destroys my Pokemon. So I figure if I can at least wait out the swap timer with my Venusaur here, and at least get this Venusaur taken out in the process, or waste off his shields, one of the two, I may somehow be able to pull this around, to the point I am willing to put myself at the shield disadvantage to pull something around. I just need to take out the Venusaur. Pretty sure I didn't mean to go for the Frenzy Plant right here, and meant to swap, but what can you do when you got fat thumbs? Now, at least I can get the Beedrill out here now. Maybe save my Venusaur for something in the upcoming future. I got really lucky with being able to withstand that Rock Tomb. Now, honestly, I'm trying to figure out. I win this match, but even I don't remember how I do so. Do I just get X-Scissors so frequently that I'm just able to outlast a Fortress or something? I'm just still baffled how I could pull something around. Just at a disadvantage all around. Did waste all of his shields, so at least if I can get my Venusaur in here, it can go through, but it just doesn't make sense. I guess I attacked it and finished off the Venusaur before it could even go down. His Venusaur is almost down, so I guess just attack it before it can come out. And I have the Frenzy Plant ready, so I get that before the Quagsire can even get out on the field. And remember how I said Quagsire just dies to Venusaur? Yeah. So, as the last match of 3, there's a lot of riding on this, including with how I lead. So I go with my tried and true Charizard, and he leads off the Fortress, which gives me a huge advantage. Worst case scenario, I get some damage and take out a Pokemon early on. Best case scenario, I get an early lead, and this Quagsire is pretty much gone. So either way, I pretty much got a Pokemon lead without having to waste any of my shields and barely any health. Now, the Fortress here is a bit tricky to work with. I mean, in hindsight, I probably could just switch to Charizard, take advantage of the fact that he still has to wait to switch. But I don't think I was thinking that far ahead, so I was trying to like bait out some shields and do damage to him while conserving my Pokemon for later. Oh yeah, there's also the fact that I can't switch because I just switched to counter his switch. I think that's the real reason I didn't switch there. Now here is a big brain play of trying to bait out some shields with the obvious Blast Burn. And Lord and behold, I succeeded, almost like he pretty much had to, otherwise his Fortress was done. So I'm going to see if I can get the shield advantage, see if Lightning strikes twice, or if he'll catch on. I'm not sure if he caught on or it was just a situation where he has to shield, because he can't afford to risk me actually getting a Blast Burn in. Just like I can't really afford to conserve one of my shield, expecting over prediction, because his Fortress and my Charizard are in pretty similar situations where one move could pretty much decimate the other because of the quad weakness and all. However, my Blast Burn makes quick work of the Venusaur, and I don't even need fire moves to finish off the Fortress. So I managed to even things up, winning one match, losing the other. Let's see how round 3 goes. It is what I would say, but I did kind of allude that these matches for the tournament were getting quite long, and I felt more comfortable splitting it in half. And this actually makes a pretty good breaking point, because we're about halfway in the gameplay that I captured for this Rainbow Cup tournament. So next time we meet, I will share the concluding half of my Rainbow Cup tournament with the exciting battles that happen along the way. I've been your host, Jackie K. Feel free to support me through your typical YouTube means if you enjoyed what you see, and subscribe for the next part when I upload it next week. Take care.